So we're okay, we're ready? Okay, you've got me coming through over there. When you speak. Okay, you've got an echo, I've got an echo over there. Yes, that's fine, but I've got an echo coming over there. Yeah. Thank you. Right, thank you. Welcome everyone, and to the Waverley Local Planning Panel of the 26th of June 2024. I'd like to, on behalf of the panel, acknowledge the traditional owners who occupied the land and the Sydney coast, and acknowledge the Aboriginal elders, both past and present. I'd also like to just take a minute of everyone's time to acknowledge Paul Steen. He had passed away in the last couple of days after a long illness. And as most people who are here in this panel would know, that he has been very much part of the Waverley local planning, or the planning panel, since I think 2013. And not only was he instrumental in setting up the Waverley planning panel initially, but also across Sydney, and through the initiation of the local planning panels, I think in 2018, 19, I can't remember when the first one came through. He certainly sat as chair on a number of panels across Sydney, and I think that we can thank him very much for the way in which the planning panels have progressed and have become entrenched in our planning system. I'd also acknowledge his time on the Land Environment Court, and also on behalf of Waverley Planning Panel, pass our respects on to his family. So just on that note, there's no apologies for today's meeting. We've got all the panel members here. Can I ask for any declarations of interest from our panel?
Jeff Denman, I have no conflict of interest.
Megan Jones, I have no conflict of interest.
Helena Miller, I just have declared a reasonably perceived conflict of interest in relation to item 1, in that I previously shared office space with the planners on that application, but otherwise no conflict of interest.
And I'm the chair today, Jacqueline Townsend. So as introduced themselves, Megan Jones and Helena Miller are our experts, and Jeff Denman is our community representative today. I'm Jacqueline Townsend and I'm the chair. We have quite a large agenda today. We have 13 items. We have a number of speakers. So when you're asked to speak, if you could keep it to 3 minutes, and if someone before you is saying a submission or making a submission that is similar to yours, please just note that submission and move on to your next point. As we know that there's no recording of this meeting other than by council without prior permission, and I have no notice of anyone seeking to record. So that is the only recording from today. So after we go through all the items, at the close of the public hearing, the panel will retire to make its determination on each item. The panel's determination and then the audio recording will be made available on council's website as soon as possible. The first item is DA 353-2023, 49C Bondi Road, Bondi Junction. We've received 41, I think, total submissions, written submissions on this item. They've all been provided to the panel and they will be considered in the determination of this matter. We have registered speakers objecting. First, we have William Marokas, co-convener of the Bondi Heights Precinct. Are you there, William?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So you've got 3 minutes and you can start when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Bill Maroukas and today I speak on behalf of the Bondi Heights Precinct as committee co-convener. The report recommendations, especially proposed hours of operation until midnight, will result in an intensification of activity in the community room in comparison with the current frequency of use and operating hours. This will significantly impact many local residents who live nearby, especially families with young children. The assessment report was prepared by council officers for a development application prepared and lodged by other council officers, a point of concern at the precinct and by councillors, particularly given the weight that the report recommendations generally carry during deliberations by the panel. On behalf of the Bondi Heights Precinct Committee, I request that 1. Any repairs to or replacement of the existing community audio system should ensure that sound levels remain at the current capability so that amenity impacts on residents are not compromised. 2. Clause 9I, conditions of consent, which states council reserves the right to further include, by way of written advice, types of other functions considered under this condition on page 26 of the report, be deleted. This clause is vague and could provide an opportunity for external sound equipment being used. 3, clause 9, III, conditions of consent, which states no use of external areas adjacent to the community room is to occur after 10 p.m. other than for egress. In this regard, the doors of the community room shall remain closed after 10 p.m. on page 26. Be amended so that event activity is restricted to the internal area of the community room. It is imperative that noise generation is contained. Having activity outside the room will substantially increase noise spill. 4, the approval be additionally conditioned to require self-closing doors so that internal noise can be contained within the interior area, even while people are entering and exiting. 5, relating to clause 21, under no circumstances should any audio equipment and musical instruments be used other than the existing sound system in the community room. See VMS report recommendations on page 18. 6, relating to clause 22, the reference to substantiated complaints, provide additional comprehension, certainty, and methodology as to substantiating evidence would need to be provided by local residents when making any complaints, ensuring the ease with which the residents could obtain that evidence. In any case, who determines what is a substantiated complaint? 7, the total operational hours, including bump in and bump out, be restricted from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday. Activities at the Waverley Park generally, if not always, ended by 9 p.m. Precinct meetings end by 9 p.m. Allowing activity at the community room to extend past 9 p.m. will increase disturbance, particularly during children's sleeping hours and when patrons leave the site.
Thank you, William. So, William, that's your time. I'm sorry.
But one last point.
One last point. Just be quick. Can you do it quickly?
The trial for the extended hours not be supported. Operational hours should not pass 9 p.m. under any circumstances. Many in the community will believe their concerns have been ignored and the trial will act as an imposition on their amenity. Thank you very much for that extension.
Great. Thank you very much for getting through that in 3 minutes. Any questions, panel, from the panel to William? No? No?
What's the experience currently then, William? The people sometimes use this place to have parties. They use the audio system. You're happy with the audio system? That your problem is the time, is it?
Well, the precinct actually did not want anything past 7 p.m, but we're trying to be pragmatic here with what we can mitigate as far as the impacts. The activity at the community room with the original plan of management did not indicate any sort of activity such as this. In fact, a complaint was lodged by the precinct in December 2022, which actually triggered council to lodge this development application. Loud music going into the night of an event that happened in that November caused a lot of disturbance. So the suggestion that there have been many events and this is actually a formalisation, we would not agree with at the precinct. It is actually, in our view, a change of use. and some of the councillors
Are
also.
you aware that the Noise Control Act, the New South Wales law, allows the use of amplified noise up to midnight? That would make this room a sort of an island within New South Wales where nothing, no
Do you have a
electrical
question?
equipment happen
Is that
after
a
9.
question? Is that a question?
So do you think that's reasonable?
I think that this is a community property. It's a Waverley Park, which is planted in which is located in a residential, surrounded by residential properties. The community doesn't expect council-run properties to be turning Waverley Park into a function centre, which was never indicated in the original DA in 2009. So, you know, as far as what the EPA provides, I think that pertains mainly to private property owners. I don't think that, well, I mean, I know, of course, it applies everywhere, but the fact is that the expectation of the community is that there would not be such events and irregular bookings of such events at Waverley Park.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. John Simpson, are you here, John?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Thank you. You've got 3 minutes. If
Thank
you.
you.
Start. Thank you.
Thanks for the time. I'm John Simpson. I am an impacted resident. I am also a professional sound engineer and consultant of 45 years experience. I've done many Olympic Games, a lot of outdoor events, a lot of television shows. I consult for Carriageworks, Fox Studios, and I also do venue installation and noise reporting and management. And my points are that the VMS report and recommendations are hypothesis only, and they cite generic SPL figures, no worst case scenario. There's no case studies presented. There's no empirical evidence used at all. And after consulting with other professionals who are all qualified in noise measurement and management, we can guarantee you those that SPL measurement is nowhere near what will be expected at these kind of hours and events. The hours of operation, I think, as an impacted resident, are excessive. 100 people leaving a venue or gathering at any time in the evening exponentially gets louder at night as your hearing thresholds become more sensitive. I think anyone thinking they're all going to be in the car park is wrong. I think there'll be a lot of activity on people leaving the installation. I think, like Bill said, that the venue should be used as the community room only and never be allowed to encroach outside. That is extremely intrusive for a lot of us and all my neighbours. I think also the community room speakers that are installed there need to be identified by brand, model, number and power rating, and that anything that ever needs replacing or substitution if they get older or whatever should be of the same or similar replacement. And also one more point, and I'll be brief, worth noting is that it is an amphitheatre-like building. It's going to amplify and reflect sound off concrete walls and will travel far further than anyone is anticipating via that VMS report. So just in closing, I think the VMS report is good. I think it measures from the wrong point of view. I think it's a policy. It measures. It's a reasonable starting point, but it doesn't actually measure in the correct manner what a venue is capable of producing in noise. And they're using A-weighted levels, should be using C-weighted levels like anyone in City of Sydney uses. And I think that their figures that they've cited, just repeating, are much lower than reality would suggest, based on mine and my other professional colleagues' opinions. I think that is me, and I agree with Bill. It's a change of use from a community room to a function centre. One term in there that is worrying is the term celebrations. I think celebrations as part of what its use is needs to much more clarity. That's it. I'm finished. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions for John, panel? No? Great. Thank you very much, John. That was helpful for us.
Okay.
applicant is here now. We've got the Alistair Graham, who's the executive manager at Waverley Council. He's the executive manager of community library and recreation venues. I just want to make the point that the assessment on this application was not done by council, was done by independent planner, who's Lisa Bella Esposito. And we've also got Sam DeMasi from Principal Acoustics and Vibration. Sam, I'm wondering if you could go first and respond to, in part, some of those submissions made by John Simpson in relation to how the acoustic measurements were taken. Are you there, Sam?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm recovering from a little bit of a throat thing happening, so hopefully you can hear me. Good morning all, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. Hopefully I won't take more than a couple of minutes. Thank you for the comments, William and John. I think first I might very briefly just maybe go through the process. Look, this is driven by the fact that there's an EPA policy. So I think that looking at C weighting and A weighting in response to John is not correct, but I'll answer that later. In essence, in accordance with the EPA, the Noise Policy for Industry, which is the most appropriate document, we've looked at the noise impact, from this development, noting the current operations, and noting that council is not intending to increase hours, increase capacity, or allow for high-risk noise events. So I'll have to disagree with those comments. We did undertake an ambient noise survey at 3 details areas to understand the typical noise in the area. And yes, it's residential. It's a residential area, but it's a residential area that's surrounded by major roads. There's a park. It's not it's not a very quiet area in the middle of nowhere. So you need to take background noise levels. They were taken at 3 locations so that we can understand the catchment areas. Excuse me. Obviously, the people across Bondi would have a different catchment to the people tucked in around the back. So we took 3 locations. Excuse me. The nearest residential receiver is also not next door. It's at least 90 metres away across Bondi Road. So I think we need to understand the context of where this location is compared to the residential receivers. So after that, in consultation with the council, we looked at 6 worst case operational scenarios, and we modelled those scenarios to each catchment area and compared against the trigger levels. We did include music, and those music levels have come from the AAAC guideline. They were not made up, as William indicated. I do agree for large events, the numbers would be louder, but this is not that type of event. There are 2 small powered speakers located in the rear upper wall of this room. We've assumed full capacity. We've assumed that these events could occur between 10 and midnight. Apologies. Now, the predictions include reflections, include barriers, etc. Now, up to the evening, we have shown no exceedances on a worst case scenario, but when the music is not background, in 2 of those scenarios with the doors open, we have exceedances of between 1 and 4, apologies, which is subjectively negligible to marginal in accordance with EPA. Now, note again, these are worst case scenarios with the doors open at the nearest receiver with each catchment area. And we've assumed this could happen between 10 and midnight. In our professional opinion, it's a low risk.
So that's your time.
Yep.
I'm just wondering whether
Two comments.
Yeah,
Sorry.
2 last comments, please.
So the last comments are that, this is a conservative assumption. As Alistair will talk, the actual events are nothing like what William and John appear to understand, and that if these exceedances are to occur for those 2 events and they would go up to midnight, you could simply close the doors.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Yes, we do. So, Helena, thanks.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is for the noise consultant or for the applicant, but I was just wondering, hearing what the community has to say. interested in what actually has been the experience up to now. How has the facility been used up to now?
Good question.
And secondly, if you were, it seems to me that 12 midnight, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights is unlikely that you're going to be using it at that time. Is there hours lesser than what you've applied for, which would be acceptable to the applicant, which would also address some of the community's concerns around?
Well, I probably would. It's probably more for Alistair and Lisabella, but we have looked at scenarios up to these 6 scenarios have been looked up to 6 p.m., which is daytime from EPA, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., which is evening as per EPA. And then we've looked at that shoulder period at night, apologies, between 10 and 12. So we've given the opportunity for council to understand the risk. And so there are up to 6, up to 10, and up to midnight scenarios that we have considered. And you're right, once Alistair talks, you'll see that in the past 12 months, some of these activities probably cease before 6, some before 10, and there's probably only a handful that have ceased before midnight. But that's probably his area to talk, and Lisabella.
Yeah, all right. Well, maybe, Alistair, thank you very much for that, Sam. Alistair, maybe you could give us an address.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll just go to Alistair first, and then we'll come back if there's any further questions for Sam. So if you could just stay on, Sam, we'll give him a break to sort of clear his throat as well. So Alistair, when you're ready, if you've heard what's been put so far, and certainly what Helena has also asked. So if you could try and sort of bring into your submission some of those answers for us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I appreciate there's been feedback from various stakeholders through the process. And I just want to reiterate that our aim here is to simply maintain how the venue has been used over the last 12 years or so, rather than a change in use. So the space is first and foremost a community facility. It's deliberately reasonably priced, and it's used by a range of council-run initiatives such as seniors active programs, yoga, tai chi, etc., wellness groups, support groups, and a couple of dance groups, including one that's focused on those with Parkinson's disease. So they're all low impact, small numbers. We have 16 of those regular sessions booked in each week. And in the last 12 months, we've had around 45 casual hirers, so using the room for a range of purposes. Just want to reiterate, all venue hire inquiries must go through the venues team, where they are assessed for the suitability of use for the room. And all conditions of use are communicated up front, and the client has to agree to that before any venue hire agreement is confirmed. For example, we don't allow 18th, 21st, 30th birthday parties, bucks or hens events. That's the same across all of our council venues. And the conditions of use are quite clear about what we accept and must be signed before any booking is confirmed with payment. For example, people can't bring in external sound equipment or any kind of amplified gear. So if anyone does request that, we're upfront about that and just advise that they perhaps go elsewhere. We're not seeking to increase the number and scope of the activities, as I say, simply just to confirm and put some clear guidelines around how we've been currently operating. I did mention the fees are deliberately kept affordable, so it's an important community space for a number of groups. The income received from that simply subsidises the running costs of the space. It's not a money-making exercise. I'm happy to answer any other questions if the panel's got any now.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you. Megan Jones has a question for you.
Condition 9 of the potential approval conditions of consent says that the function activity shall not occur without the police saying it can occur, which is the hens nights, the 21st, I thought you said you weren't seeking those activities.
That's correct. We don't currently offer them, and there's no plan to.
So you wouldn't, would you object to that condition being changed so that they are not allowed? Those types of functions are not allowed at all.
Correct. We're saying we don't host them. Yep. And
Okay.
we don't intend to. Yep.
The second question I have, sorry if you don't mind, do you currently have activities that go till 10 p.m. Particularly during the week?
Yeah, so currently with the regular hires, there is a support group and a wellness group that run respectively to 8:15 p.m. and 9 p.m. That's the latest. And then with some of the functions, out of the 45 that I mentioned earlier in the last 12 months, I think only 2 of those have run beyond 10 p.m., which was to 10:30 p.m.
So on the basis of that, how would you feel about during the week, Monday to or Sunday to Thursday, the hours being restricted to 9 p.m?
You just said some of them go to 10 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, it would be workable. However, I think it would be ideal if we could have the flexibility to 10 p.m. But again, noting the fact that everything is low impact and quiet. We don't tend to have functions or noisy events, not that there are many during the week. Anything like that would be restricted generally to Friday or Saturday evenings.
Yeah.
So just picking up on, I suppose, what Megan's saying, sorry, I shouldn't have jumped across you then, but it may well be that functions should be limited
to Fridays and Saturdays.
To Fridays, Saturdays, and maybe a Sunday to a lesser, so something like that. So because I think what you're saying, and it's understandable, wellness activities, they are conducted after work and they may go over time, same as sporting AGMs or meetings and things like that run through the week. They're not noisy events. They're actually just using a facility for its purpose. So it may well be the characterising of the use may well be better rather than the limiting of the hours. So maybe that's something that the panel could consider. And look at that wouldn't be too restrictive based on what what's current use is. It seems to respond to what the current use is. Would that be fair to say, Alistair?
Yes, that's fair. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So can I just also ask, and just on that point, at the moment the application's seeking approval till 12 midnight.
It's a trial period.
For a trial period, or the recommendation is for a trial period. Are you saying that you haven't had any events in the last 12 months that have operated between 10 p.m. and 12 midnight?
2 of them have finished at 10:30 p.m. But they actually, and one other finished at 11 p.m. But as I say, that's 3 out of 45.
And so in terms of if you were then to get an approval which allowed you to operate till 12 midnight, 7 days a week essentially, for a trial period of 12 months, that would be an intensification of the current use.
In theory, it would be, but we wouldn't be, in practice, wouldn't actually be implementing that.
So do you need approval till 12 midnight, 7 days per week?
I think that's an application. That's what the application is.
But it appears that what the applicant is saying is that that's not what they're going to use it as, and that's not what they want.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just not clear.
Sure. Lisa, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. I think that what we've got here, though, is an application, and if I hear what Alice is saying, he's just given us what the application says and what its use is and how it's been used to date. So I think we can't take it any further than that. Can you, Alistair?
I just might add that the current use, so the way we have been running it is 10 p.m. Sunday through till Thursday, and then up to midnight Fridays and Saturdays. So that's been the standard practice up until now, and that's the framework that we've worked within.
Thank you, Alistair. Okay, and Lisa, we've sort of left you out of this conversation, and I believe you're the planner. Is there anything you'd like to add on this, especially hearing from from Alistair in relation to its current use and the intention of its current use, of its future use?
Yes, I would. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address the panel. I would like to make clear that there is no intensification that is being proposed by this development application. At the moment, there are no hours of operation that are imposed as a restriction on the original development consent that was granted by the panel in 2012. And just to reiterate some of the concerns that were raised by William, It's also important that everyone understands this is a community room facility. It's not a pub, it's not a nightclub, and it's certainly not a function centre. The purpose of this DA is to establish a framework that wasn't set up when it was originally approved. And William was correct that the trigger to prepare this assessment and the acoustic report came after a complaint in November 2022. The events that Alastair just ran through have operated without complaint, and the community room is well used. It's an adaptable facility, and therefore it makes it a hub for community enjoyment. And it's important to understand the context. Have all panel members been to the site?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're sitting in a park setting. The building is set into the ground, and it also is, as Sam correctly mentioned, a minimum of 90 to 100 metres away from any sensitive residential receivers. To address the issues of hours, we would advocate to the panel that we would seek the removal of the trial period, noting that the council officers have asked for there to be a trial between 10 p.m. to midnight for the indoor use of the facility. That's condition 6. We think that a trial period's not required because there's enough mitigation measures and management measures in place in the plan of management and other conditions of consent that are being proposed. The imposition of the trial period will add unnecessary costs to planning red tape for council as the operator, and will also result in additional unnecessary costs and use of council resources to review and assess further applications. And on that basis, we ask that the trial period is removed. Now, when we come to hours, there's been much discussion about, how many events are being used between 10 and 12. My position to Alastair at the outset was we need the acoustic report so we can understand what the real impacts are in terms of the technical analysis, and then we can utilise that data and along with other management measures which are in the plan of management to dictate what the hours of operation should be. We would say to council and the panel that the community facility should have maximum flexibility so that on a case-by-case basis that council, Alastair's team can assess these events and ensure that the community maximises the use of a council asset.
That's your time, Lisa. So thank you. I think that's quite helpful. There may be some questions arising from that. I know I have one. In relation to the hours, there's I suppose which you get into a minefield when you start looking at days and hours because the usage are different on each day. And as Alastair quite rightly highlighted, you may have local sporting groups in there having a meeting that they're halfway through and they have to end because the time usage ends at 10 p.m. So one would think that, sensibility takes over in those regards. So it may be the characterising of the function or the use. So it's not so much the hours that's the impact, it's actually what's in there, the function that's the impact. So I'm wondering whether if I put to you the question of the level of functions or the type of functions that could be used on a certain day, would you find that reasonable and would that fit within the intention of the applicant using that facility as a community facility?
Again, I would advocate to steer away from prescriptions that would eliminate Alastair's team from taking on a very reasonable and low impact function for a community group that is a little outside of the box and may need to operate till 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. I just think these types of prescriptions aren't necessary when we've have a strict plan of management that's picked up in condition 1, and we also have the acoustic analysis that has been prepared by VMS Australia. I think council has responded in a very well considered, Alistair's team I'm referring to, a very well considered and approach to how they went about preparing this development application that's before you today.
Thank you. Panel, do you have any questions for Lisa? Jeff, yes?
I have one. Lisa, just on the back of Jacqueline's question, really to cut to the heart of this, it seems that the community concern involves basically two things: the use of the the speakers, which would amplify sound across the park and disturb the locals, and the amount of people in there. Isn't it possible to limit those two issues to certain hours so that the locals can be assured that there won't be any loud noise late at night during the week? Sort of simple, really, isn't it?
Well, I think that Sam and also John Simpson both commented on the speakers that are currently in the community room. The plan of management advocates that only those speakers can be used and no other speakers. And they are very small, low impact speakers. They're not professional kind of nightclub type speakers. And we actually heard the speakers at the highest volume, and I don't consider, and as the VMS report has demonstrated, that the acoustic impacts when there is 120 people with the doors open with the music at capacity, so the foreground music, not background, any non-compliance was marginal, if at all. So we would say that I think council is being overly cautious for what has operated for 12 years with relatively no complaints. It's operated in the last 12 months with no complaints. And it's operated with unrestricted operational requirements. There hasn't been any restriction on hours or restriction on music or so council, I would say, in my assessment, has managed this facility very well to ensure that the amenity to surrounding properties is protected.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for their contribution. It's always, sorry?
Council officers did assess the today.
Oh, sorry. So the independent consultant just conducted the
there was assessment done by
councillor, sorry, my apologies. I'll just correct that. Council officers did assess the application, and the application was made by an independent person, which was I get that. Thank you. Sorry, I just want to correct that for the record.
Sorry, could I just correct that, or just check with the chair that you got the late correspondence?
Yes, we did.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now, thank you, everyone. That's very helpful on that item. So now we'll move on to item number 2, which is DA 156 2023, 2 Harlow Place, Bronte. We had a number of submissions received on this item. We also have registered speakers to speak against the recommendation. Tony Moody, on behalf of Melinda and Jason Boone, are you present?
Yes, Chair. Tony Moody speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So you've got 3 minutes and you can start when you're ready.
Thank you. Just firstly, I wish to echo your comments about Judge Paul Steen. I consider he was a wonderful judge and a person and to be sorely missed. Secondly, I seek deletion of condition 2A, requiring a 1.8 metre high privacy screen on the northern side. this screen not only adds bulk when viewed from my client's property to the north, it will also reduce views, and in the overall balance of convenience, my clients and I support their recommendation, seek deletion of condition 2A. The final issue is one of the planter boxes on the eastern side. Panel members, you are probably aware that the properties to the east are downslope and to the east of this site. As indicated on figures 12 and 13 in the orange lines, the planters essentially breach the rear setback control. So if you're standing in the adjoining properties to the east, you'll be looking up at structures which come much closer to the rear boundary than they should. On this point, I note that number 1 was acknowledged by council officers as being compliant with the rear setback control, and number 3 is compliant with the rear setback control in the council officers' reports. You now are faced with an application where the proposed planters and their structures are in breach of the rear setback control. If they're to be provided, they should be pushed back, particularly at the second floor level or first floor level, so that they don't encroach into this rear setback line. Again, the people to the east, and I'm not raising this concern from my clients necessarily, but they'll be looking up at structures well within 5 metres of their property boundary. So they're the two matters: deletion of condition 2A, and looking at the plans on pages 103 and 104, the planters which encroach, I seek them to be either removed or pushed back and incorporated into the main building envelope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, certainly. And there's a question for you, Tony, if you just hold on.
Yes.
I just wanted a clarification of your request to remove condition 2A.
Yes.
2A, from my understanding, reduces the height of the privacy wall down to 1.8. It's already very, very high, so it's actually reducing.
Oh, I see.
So I'm suggesting that maybe we keep condition 2A.
Yeah, I understand your point. And that was my misunderstanding. So it's been reduced to 1.8 metres. I actually think it could be 1.5. I don't think it needs to be 1.8. Eyeline height is generally 1.5. So I understand the comment that you're making, panel member. Yes.
Anything further? No. Great. Thank you. The next speaker against is Melinda and Jason Boone. Are you there? Yep.
Yes. Hi, I'm Melinda. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So you've got 3 minutes when you're ready.
All right. Thank you. I'll be quick. I know you've got a lot to get through. Basically, there is an oversized balcony that is non-compliant and over double the size that it's allowed to be. And then on top of that, you've got this brick wall to be built across the width of this non-compliant balcony. We believe there's no need for this brick wall on the balcony. We look out at our bedroom windows and we're pretty much staring straight into it. We accept that there are a few breaches with the height, the planter boxes breach the rear setback, and obviously the balcony is oversized. But yeah, this brick wall on the balcony is really, it's just very much in your face and it doesn't need to be there. If privacy is an issue and the balcony size is to be kept as is, then maybe you could consider moving the balcony across and away from our bedrooms. Or even if the balcony was to be kept as is and the location kept as is, they're just to remove that brick wall that's being built on the side of the balcony. We accept that council has approved the oversized balcony, but on top of that, we just don't believe we should be then disadvantaged with this brick wall on the balcony. The brick wall on the balcony, it just doesn't need to be there. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Melinda? Melinda, no, great. Okay, thank you. We've got the applicant speaking. We've got the town planner, George Caravanis. George, are you there?
Yes, I am. And
there's three of you speaking. Are you all going to speak, or you're just one of you going to make a submission on behalf of all?
Chair, my name's Anthony Boscovich. I'm a representative and solicitor for the applicant. I'll be here to answer some questions and just generally manage our team. Mr. Caravanis will do the substantive response and submission, and then the architects are here to respond to any queries that might arise from any
Great,
questions.
very helpful. Thank you. All right, so Caravanis, when you're ready, thank you.
I'll firstly have to apologise for my voice. I'm losing my voice as well, so I hope you can hear me. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant and in support of the application. And I have with me Mr. John Richards, who will also be able to answer any questions, as well as Mr. Boscovich. First, I'd like to confirm that we concur with the assessment report and we do not wish to challenge any of the conditions and indeed the recommendation. You would be aware that the site has a number of constraints due to its irregular boundaries and very narrow frontage. Proposal has been amended during the course of the assessment in response to Council's comments and matters raised in submissions. We've worked very closely with Council's staff to revise the scheme to a form that is acceptable and, of course, the subject of a recommendation for approval now. These amendments include achieving a compliant FSR and increasing front, side and rear setbacks. The proposal as amended achieves a skillful response to the site constraints, which relates well to the existing surrounding context and complements the streetscape character. The proposed buildings are predominantly compliant with the Council's built form controls. While there are some slight protrusions, these are a function mainly of the site's atypical shape. They're minor in nature, and they, very importantly, do not give rise to any significant impacts. These have been dealt with in some detail in Council Officer's report and found to be acceptable. In terms of the building height, as addressed in pages 91 to 93 of the Council report, and indeed in our clause 4.6, the non-compliance only relates to the edges of the uppermost roof slab and the pop-up roof. The variation has no impact on amenity and notably ensures the overall building height is consistent with the heights of the surrounding properties on Harlow Place. The development will provide an elegant contemporary dwelling with substantial new landscaping that will improve the site's appearance, contribute positively to the streetscape character, and maintain an appropriate relationship with the neighbours. So for all those reasons, members of the panel, the proposal is appropriate for the site and the locality and is worthy of approval. If I can quickly respond to the two matters raised by the objectors, in respect of the planters, they are actually relating to compliant levels below. And if they were to be removed, you'll still see the roof. So all they do is they provide some relief and opportunity for landscaping. They do not give rise to any impacts. So we don't think they should be removed, nor should the height of the wall be removed either. I think be reduced. I think at 1.8, it's an acceptable height. If you look at the drawings, and particularly if you look at page 153 of the agenda, which is the first floor plan, you will see that the wall that the objector was referring to, which is where it says barbecue, that's entirely within a compliant envelope. In other words, within the rear setback. So you'd expect the building to be up to that particular alignment. So, and as I said, as the arc goes around, the proposal does comply with that rear alignment as well. That's all I need to say, members of the panel. If there are any other further questions from me or other members of our team, we're more than happy to answer those.
Thank you. Thank you for addressing that wall issue. Is there any questions, panel? No? Thank you. Anthony, did you want to, was there anyone else who wanted to speak? Do we have any questions for anyone else that's here? No. I don't think we need to hear from anyone else on behalf of the applicant unless there's something specifically you want to submit. Otherwise, we'll take on board everything that's been said and consider it in our determination later today.
Thank you, Chair. No further comments from the applicant side.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time in coming and addressing the panel.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, item 3, DA 439 2021G 138 Hastings Parade, North Bondi. It's a modification. A submission was received during the exhibition period. We've got no speakers for the objector. We've got Luke Marquet here as a planner. Luke, are you here?
Yes, we're here.
Okay. Is there something you'd like to make a submission on?
Sure. I mean, I suppose just really on behalf of the owner, really is just to say that, you know, the addition of the rooftop terrace was really scrutinised in detail by us to ensure there'd be no privacy issues, because, you know, the owner didn't want her privacy affected from the rooftop as much as the adjoining neighbours. So, you know, we had the windows, the walls, the balconies, all meticulously modelled to ensure the privacy is maintained, and in addition to make sure solar access for the neighbours is maintained as well. And I think that's been brought out in the planning report in quite detail. I think really, you know, we're happy with the council's report. We've had a look at the draft conditions. So, and really, and thank you for your time today. I don't think there's much more really to be said than that.
Thank you. Panel, do we have any questions? No. Great. Well, thank you for your time in coming today. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the next item, item 4, DA 14 2024, 36 Gilbert Street, Dover Heights. Submissions were received. We have them. There's no registered speaker. We have an applicant, Scott Morell, here. Scott, are you here and wishing to address the panel?
Yeah, I'm here. I hope you can hear me. Just thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. I'm just speaking on behalf of the homeowners and the applicant. We're pleased with council's recommendation for approval and obviously support that. And I'm pretty much just here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions, panel? No? Great. Well, thank you for coming along and giving us your time. There's nothing further for you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Cheers, you too. Number 5, which is DA 383 of 2023, 6 Wallace Street, Waverley. There was a submission received during the exhibition period. There's no one registered to speak against the recommendation. David Fleeting, who's the applicant architect, is here. Are you here, David? No? Oh, David, you're on mute. We can see you, but we need to.
Yeah, sorry, there we go.
Mute yourself. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
I'm really here to answer any questions that are required. I have nothing particular to say. We're happy with the assessment, etc. So if there's any issues that need to be addressed, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, David. Is there any questions for David? No. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming, but we don't have any questions to put to you. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll move now on to the next item, which is item number 6, DA 348 2013 C. It's 97 Ramsgate Avenue, North Bondi. It's a modification. Submissions were received during the exhibition period. We have them. There's no registered speakers against the recommendation, but we do have the town planner and the architect here. Helena Rubenstein, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Is there anything you'd like to address the panel on?
I'll just be very brief. Helena from GSA Planning and speaking on behalf of the applicant. Mark Eastham, the architect of EDH Group, is also registered and available to sort of answer any sort of technical questions of the panel. We just wanted to say we concur with the assessment contained in the council officer's report and the recommendation for approval, and we don't wish to challenge any of the conditions of consent. We wanted to reiterate that following extensive discussions with council during the assessment process, revised plans were prepared to ensure that views from neighbouring development were maintained. The improvements compared to the originally submitted plans included lowering the roof slope on the western beach side so it better integrates with the existing roof structure, and deleting the roof addition, part of the roof addition at the northeastern corner. We do understand that there were 4 submissions that were received by council that related to privacy impacts, height exceedance and view loss. As the works are limited to external finishes and modification to the roof at the centre of the attic level, there is no change to the approved FSR. The approved building at 15 metres exceeds the LEP height standard, and it is noted that any area of the new height breach either occurs largely within the existing roof structure or at an RL that is lower than the approved maximum. And the works are also located within the central portion of the roof. So the amended roof has been designed to preserve solar access, and this is outlined in shadow diagrams and confirmed in Council Officer's report on page 539. And importantly, as the amended roof design will preserve the views of neighbouring development. This is also confirmed in the amended view analysis that Mark had provided council, and is also confirmed in pages 547 to 548 in council's report. So we think the proposal continues to satisfy the relevant provisions under the ADG and the DCP. It will retain its overall approved built form and will continue to contribute positively to the streetscape and the Ben Buckler area. For those reasons, we think the modified proposal is appropriate for the site, and we're happy for this to be recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. That was well put. Any questions? No? Great. Thank you very much for coming along. And also, Mark, we don't have any questions for you either, but we appreciate you making yourself available. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 7, DA 387 2023, which is 92 Ramsgate Avenue, Bondi Beach. There was a number of submissions received during the exhibition period. There's one speaker objecting to the recommendation, Duncan Rawlinson. Duncan, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you. We can hear you very clearly. Thank you. And your time of 3 minutes starts when you're ready.
Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to address the planning panel. I will confine my comments to matters raised by the report provided to the panel rather than re-prosecute the submissions themselves. My first point is that if approved, this DA is a new DA, will drive a coach and horses through council's planning rules, and I suggest will render them largely redundant for future single dwelling developments. I say this because of the manner in which the applicant has chiselled council on this matter via a series of DAs and amendments. The end result is a single dwelling that will very materially exceed single dwelling height limits and FSR requirements. I can't conceive that council would have recommended this DA for approval if it had been proposed from the outset as a single dwelling. I note that the executive summary on page 285 of the papers lists 3 principal issues. However, the summary page of the papers of council's report does not list one of those principal issues, being the bulk and scale of the application. I wanted to draw this omission to the panel's attention in order that this 3rd principal issue is clear. The lesson for future developers, as I see it, will be that if you want to obtain a grossly oversized single dwelling on a plot in Waverley, start with a DA for 3 units, then once that is approved, amend it to 2 units, and when that is approved, amend it again to a single dwelling, and wedge council on the originally approved 3-unit building envelope, despite its irrelevance to a single dwelling. My second point is that there is a material contradiction in the applicant's arguments for this DA. Page 589 of the papers refers to the correspondence from the applicant in italics, where the applicant clearly states this is a new DA and not a modification. As such, council should have assessed it from scratch against the requirements for a single dwelling. And page 591 confirms that viewed from scratch, this DA materially exceeds requirements. And I suggest council should have rejected the DA on those grounds. Instead, they're allowing the applicant to, inappropriately in my view, have their cake and eat it by asserting in some parts that it's a new DA when that suits their argument, and at the same time asserting that the already approved building envelope should remain. My third point concerns the consideration of the request to delete the third story, which I don't think has been explained satisfactorily by council in the papers. I ask that planning panel reject this development application and at a minimum require the applicant to remove the top floor of the proposed development to reduce the extent of breach. I don't think that should unduly compromise the development given the nature of the top floor. And my last point is that I would suggest that the applicant be, if the panel is alternatively minded to accept the proposal, which I don't favour, I would suggest that the applicant be required to submit a materially higher planning agreement offer than the one that's currently proposed. The reason for this is that it should be an offer which better reflects that the FSR exceeds the single dwelling requirement by 240 square metres or 86%, whereas the current figure offered is based on an exceedance of only 28 square metres. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Duncan, and thank you for not repeating the written submission. It's very helpful. Questions, panel? No. Thank you. We have the planner, George Caravanas, here. George, and we also have the applicants, Brian Myerson and Rob Myerson. Who's going to speak? George, you want to speak? Thank you.
Yes, I will. Thank you for the opportunity to address you again, Madam Chair and members of the panel. I have with me Mr. Rob Myerson, who will also be available to answer any questions. First, I'd like to confirm that we do concur with a thorough assessment report prepared by the council staff, and of course the recommendation, and we do not wish to challenge any of the conditions. The application before you is for a change of use of an approved development under construction. The development is indeed under construction. In this regard, it is the difference between the approval and the proposal that is the key matter for consideration, and this has been comprehensively addressed in the assessment report. You would be aware that the proposal is permissible in the R3 zone and retains the approved height. The FSR addition is technical due to the change of use and is entirely internal. The approved bulk and scale is not changed. The proposal also retains the approved setbacks and all landscaping. Importantly, the proposal has been amended during discussions with council, and a planning agreement has been offered and conditioned and accepted, which will provide public benefits while ensuring no additional environmental impact. In respect of density, I concur with the council assessment that the original use of this site is for a dwelling house, and that is maintained, and the proposal for a single dwelling is appropriate in this regard. In terms of impacts, there is no change in the external envelope. There are no impacts, and as a result of that, there are no impacts to the neighbours. The external appearance in the streetscape will also be maintained as per the approval. So for all those reasons, members of the panel, the proposal is appropriate for the site locality and is worthy of approval as per the previous approval for the site. That's all I wanted to say. The matters raised by the objector, I didn't understand if there were any issues of concern in terms of impacts. In terms of the methodology, there's been changing circumstances for our client that has led to the proposal being modified. And in terms of the relationship with the neighbours, there's been absolutely no change in that regard because the envelope is still remains the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just got one question. The circumstances have changed. Am I able to ask you what those were? That to move from a dual oct to now a single dwelling?
It's a multi-generational home. The parents of the applicant will be living with them, and they want to be living in one large dwelling house as opposed to two separate dwellings.
Thank you. Panel, any further questions? No. I don't think we've got any questions either for Brian or Rob Myerson, do we, the applicants? No. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming along, and it was very helpful also to hear from the objector on this matter. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 8 on the agenda, DA 5/2024, 67 Avoca Street, Bondi. We had a submission received during the exhibition period, which we have. There's no registered speakers, so we'll move on now to item 9, which is DA 3/2024, 1 and 3 Castlefield Street, Bondi. We have submissions received during the exhibition period, and we have an objector and applicant registered, Sally Charles and Sally Bassett, speaking on behalf of the objector, or as an objector to the recommendation in the report, which is recommended for refusal. So, Sally Charles and Sally Bassett, are you there?
Yes. Yes. Sally Bassett.
Thank you. Did your time start? Which one's going to speak?
Sally Bassett.
Great. Okay. When you're ready, Sally Bassett.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of Sally Charles, who's the owner of number 38 Denman Street, which is the property adjoining to the rear of 1 Castlemaine Street, the subject of the application. And thank you for giving consideration to our objection and also the opportunity to speak today. The comments we wish to make are only relevant if the planning panel approve this DA. So in that, taking that into account, I'd like to note that firstly, my client is understandably concerned about cracking from nearby building works, as it's happened twice recently, resulting in considerable costs and inconvenience. Most recently, it was due to jackhammering a new driveway. This is since the objection was sent in nearby, which caused a crack in the gutter, which caused water ingress to her house. And it just illustrates how vulnerable she is. I also note the council are aware of this particular issue and are soon going to fix that gutter. Her house, you see, sits very low. It's below grade on the laneway side, and it's very vulnerable to water ingress when there is any form of cracking caused by whatever. So what I want to discuss is the proposed rainwater tank located under the floor of the proposed garage. It sits at a depth of 1.325 metres below the garage floor level, and it's just under a metre below the level of the garage for number 40 Denman Street, which is adjacent on the rear boundary. And Sally, my client's garage is next to that. So installing this tank will involve excavation into rock. We take your point that there will be a thorough dilapidation report. Thank you. But we consider the risk inherent in this excavation sufficient to warrant moving the tank to a more suitable place. So our request is that if the DA is approved, can the tank please be removed to somewhere above ground and that doesn't require, obviously, excavation into rock. So this is only in the event of approval that we ask that you have a look at that. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel, is there any questions for Sally? No? Thank you. We've got the applicant, Nicholas Pello, here, and also the planner, Daniel Barber. One of both going to speak? Yes? Okay. Do you want to go first, Nicholas?
Yep, happy to. First up, a little bit about myself. I'm talking on behalf of my family, my growing family. I've been living at 3 Castlefield Street since 2016. 3 years ago, I bought number 1 Castlefield Street as well. That's currently got long-term tenants in it, and they've been there for about 6 years. My wife and I, we both have children and ageing family. Not in Sydney at the moment, but perhaps that changes one day soon. Ultimately, though, we need a place to park our cars and bikes and a way to charge our EV using our rooftop solar that we have installed a few years ago. Currently, we understand that the existing garage does not meet the standards for Australia, which means that we can't fit our car in there without blocking the lane while we take many attempts at manoeuvring in. We often have to park on the street instead, taking up car park, and it's not ideal for us charging either. As well as this, we're both working from home now. and we need separate offices to work from, which is why we think a multi-purpose space above, such as an office or occasional guest room, is a practical use of space, especially on the lane. And maybe one day we have a place for our parents to sleep. We understand that this kind of housing fits with the council's aim or stated aims and objectives of providing more housing diversity, especially in such a vibrant suburb that we choose to live in, like Bondi. We all walk our kids to and from school each day using the lane, and as do many other parents and local families. Rather than walking along busy and noisy Bondi Road, we want to make the lane look and feel nicer and safer than it currently does. It's got a lot of unused garages in it that are decrepit, falling down, not in use. Perhaps they're too small, cars can't fit in them properly. And the place is generally feeling very, very run down. We hope that the design that the architects have done adds to the lane a lot. And this was noted as well by one of the submissions, that in general, the proposed garage and studio is well designed. Finally, we're really trying to struggle with the conclusion the council drew looking at this relatively modest proposal for a garage with a small room above it. That the proposal is considered to have a significant detrimental effect relating to environmental, social, or economic impacts on the locality, and it's recommended for refusal. So I don't know if I can seek clarification on what that is at this panel, but it'd be great to understand further what the council means with that. Additionally, what was just stated from Sally, who spoke, the garage is not adjoining. There is a garage in between our property and 38 Denham Street. So I'd just like to clarify the location is 38 Denham Street. And if you look on a map, they have a battle axe for 40 Denham Street to actually have the garage.
Right, thank you.
I did note that. It's
Okay.
number 40's garage.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Do we have any questions for the applicant, Nicholas? No? Daniel, we might want to hear from you. Just on the additional drawings that was received, they're too late for us to consider them in this application, in this determination. That would have been helpful, I suppose, even for the council staff if they'd had them earlier. But we're not in a position to consider those additional drawings, just so you're aware. Daniel, did you want to address?
Yeah, sure. And this one point, if the panel were to, you can't make that decision now, but if you were to decide to defer the item for further consideration of those amended drawings, because some of the issues we weren't aware of, we would be more than happy for that to be a recommendation. But I understand it's your decision, will be following due course.
I think you've also got the opportunity for a review as well, wouldn't you, Daniel?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I guess it's just the timing for Nick with wanting to do this with his parents coming in from interstate. But, yeah, that is a pathway. So that's something we will be looking at. The key points I wanted to raise, you might have seen I provided a Lace and Lake correspondence to this meeting, a letter.
Yeah, I think we did. We've got everything, I think. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I just want to talk to those points high level. So firstly, the main reason for non-compliance is the minimal lot size, incompatible subdivision pattern. I understand that point. We're not changing the main subdivision pattern from the primary street. It's unchanged. It's purely to allocate a double garage to the north lot, and then where Nick lives currently, and he has a growing family. So I think the amended proposal actually includes allocating that double garage to the other lot where he's got a tenant. So he's got to kick out that tenant, move into that house, find a tenant for his other house, which seems quite against the whole purpose of the planning control, which is, orderly economic development, just based on a compliance standpoint. But it actually doesn't change the built form at all, but it now complies if you change that boundary. And both those lots are currently under the minimum lot size. So it's just surely a boundary adjustment. And look, even the indicated the future boundary adjustment, which we prefer not to do because he'd like to stay in his current house. We could do that as exempt development. And also we're kind of matching the 2 parking spots next door. So next door, they've got 2 parking spots, but they just happen to be allocated to each individual lot. Nick wants to have the larger home with his growing family, and then the southern lot would be smaller, which would be retained as 2-bedroom. The second point, floor space ratio. So as you might be aware that it is technically non-compliant with the current FSR standard, council have a planning proposal to fix that anomaly. It's actually got gateway determination. It's currently on public submission, so it has legal consideration. It's purely anomaly that it's an attached dwelling and it's not a dwelling or a dual occupancy. So therefore it doesn't benefit from that FSR bonus, but it's purely a technicality, which will, I would think it is certain and imminent given it's progressed by council and it's got gateway determination. So I don't think that's really a justified reason for refusal. The other point is overshadowing. So in my letter, it is non-compliant. The southern backyard doesn't receive the required sunlight. It's just short. Now, it's a very small backyard. It complies with the minimum recreation requirement, but because it's such a small yard and there's a north-facing dividing fence, that blocks the sun. It's not actually the studio that's resulting in the non-compliance. It's the small courtyard and the boundary fence. But if you look at the relevant case law with Meriton versus Waverley, there's that sometimes in dense urban environments and courtyards, it's more realistic to calculate sunlight at table height, not floor height. So if you actually calculated sunlight at table height, it receives well exceeds compliance because you don't have the issue with the north-facing fence. So I know that's another reason why I feel like the solar access to the private space is not really a legitimate reason for refusal, because it will have abundant light, just not at foot level, just at table level it will, relevant with the relevant case law. Then privacy impacts. So the bedroom has a 1.6 high translucent screen, which mitigates overlooking to a property at least 6 meters to the north. So council is saying that's insufficient privacy overlooking mitigation. I don't see how that could be the case. Like 1.6 high translucent screen, my view as a professional, is more than adequate, particularly when the property is 6 meters away and there's no possible direct view unless you are someone who's 2 meters and you could come up and peer over. And then there's concern about there's a little 77 millimeter window to the laneway. They're concerned about overlooking to the laneway. I personally think overlooking to the laneway is a positive attribute, provides passive surveillance and visual interest along the streetscape. And I think that's actually a positive attribute to this proposal rather than a negative aspect of looking at people that might walk down the laneway from the first floor. So it's not uncommon for a house to have a first window overlooking the street or a laneway. The next point to make is insufficient open space. It is non-compliant with the open space requirement, but when you actually look at it from an aggregated perspective, the whole site has 50% open space. The control is 40%. The technical non-compliance is just a result of the boundary adjustment. So I do think that's another unfair reason for refusal. When we look at the two lots together, which Nick both owns, it well exceeds the standard. And we comply with the minimum deep soil control for each lot. It's just the open space control. So for those reasons, I feel, yes, the proposal results in a couple of technical non-compliances as a result of the boundary adjustment. But if the boundary adjustment wasn't an issue and it looked like a total development, it's actually fully compliant with all the standards, except the minimum lot size for each lot, which we can't resolve. So I feel like the council in this instance has failed to look at the objectives of the standard and the actual outcome, which is an architectural, good-looking building on a laneway with 2 parking spots to replace a parking spot that's currently non-compliant with Australian standards. So if you look at it from that perspective, I think it's, and the fact that it's, the boundary where it's located may not be, fully consistent with the adjoining property, but it's consistent to the primary street, and it won't be readily discernible from anywhere where the actual boundary line sits. It's about the outcome of the studio and the garage and how it presents in the street, which, in my view, results in no adverse impacts to any adjoining properties and improves the aesthetics of the street. So for that reason, I think the current proposal as it stands is in the public interest and is suitable for the site. If there's any further questions, I'm happy to speak to those.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? Nope. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Daniel, for that, and everyone else for coming along and speaking on that item. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item 10, DA 351 of 2023, Unit 8, 55 to 57 Brighton Boulevard, Bondi Beach. A submission was received during the exhibition period. There's no one registered to speak against the recommendation. We have Tony Freeman, the architect applicant, present to speak. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Apologies, my camera on my laptop's not working, so I think I'm just audio.
That's okay, Tony. Did you want to make a submission, or are you happy just to take questions?
Sorry, just very briefly, there was just one item. Obviously, as applicant and on behalf of the owner, we support the recommendation for approval. I just wanted to seek one minor amendment to condition number 6, relates to hoarding. And I think I believe this is a typical standard condition, but there seems to be a typographical error which makes it read quite differently to what it's intended. On other projects, that condition starts with "to ensure the site is contained during construction if hoarding is required." The conditions actually looks like it doesn't start properly. It just says ensure the site is contained, and then says a hoarding is required. So it doesn't seem to actually follow the standard condition, which I think is what is intended. And given this is an apartment fit out up on the top level of a building, it's not something that's been built over the footpath and would typically require a hoarding over the footpath and council's consent for such a hoarding. So we're happy to have the condition in there. We just wanted to make sure that it was actually the standard condition and that what I believe is a typographical error is corrected, so that any private certifier wouldn't look at that, say you have to provide a hoarding.
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that for us. Is there anything, panel, you'd like to ask further? No. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Very helpful. Nothing further.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 11, which is DA 369 2023, 7 Park Parade, Bondi. Submission was received during the exhibition period. There's no registered objector. We have the town planner and the architect, David Waghorn and Stephen O'Connor, here. Is there a presentation, or are you happy just to take questions?
Madam Chair, no, we'd just like to thank council staff, agree with the recommendation, and here for any questions. It's been a long agenda.
You're right, yeah. They put the big one on first, which is probably not a bad thing. Maybe for you waiting on, it's a bad thing. Panel, do we have any questions on this one? No. Yeah, great. Thank you very much for your time and for waiting through the agenda for us.
No problem. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.
Now we move on to item number 12, which is DA 37 2024, 287 Birrell Street, Tamarama. No objectors, no submissions received during the exhibition. John Wilkin, the architect's here. Are you going to make a submission, or are you here for questions, John?
I'm just here for questions. Let's get this done, huh?
Questions, panel? No. Great. Thank you very much for waiting on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Item 13, DA 19 2023A, 134 Hewlett Street, Bronte. There's no submissions received, no objectors. Applicant is David Daly and George Caravanis. You're here again, George.
Yeah, apologies. Sorry about that. Again, I'm not going to take too much of your time, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the applicant. The application is quite a simple one. There is it's largely within a compliant envelope, although there is some increase in FSR. As indicated, the proposal is all within the approved external envelope. Therefore, as supported by council staff, the modifications will preserve the environmental amenity of the surrounding development, as well as the public domain, which is the key test of the FSR standard. I don't want to say too much more because it's all been covered in the assessment report, and I don't want to take too much of your time. If there are any questions, more than happy to answer those.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions? No, we don't have any questions. So thank you very much for waiting through this long agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the last item. And on that note, I will formally close the meeting. And we'll now go and make our determination, which